Okay, cool. So we're ready for week 2 of the curriculum. Time to jump into our first real animation. This was animating technically, but really what we want is to get that nice feel of actually moving something in space and making it come to life. So we're going to be doing the bouncing ball. So let me make a new scene here. And I'm going to reference in our advanced ball right here. There we go. And I'm going to animate this from, I believe, the side camera. Yeah, let's do this from the side camera. Now, when you're setting up your scene, we usually want to add a ground plane so we know what we're bouncing against right here. And let's set this to 100. So a quick tip on creating ground planes, as long as your object is zeroed out sitting on the zero space there, set your scale Y of a polygon cube to an even number. So like 2, 4, 100, it ends on an even number. And then take your translate Y and make it half of that. So half of 100 is 50, and we're going to put it negative. So negative 50. Right there. Perfect ground plane. So now I can just scale this up right there. And I'm going to frame up my camera so I know exactly what is going to be visible. Another quick tip, especially depending on your viewport size, is when you're framing things up, always use the resolution gate. That's this button right here. That's going to show the actual framing of your scene and show this kind of... I'm hitting all the wrong buttons here. Alt E, that's what I want. This kind of gray area around it. So when you have that, you can actually see your framing. But the problem is you'll notice that it's cut off at the bottom and top because my viewport isn't quite fitting it correctly based on my monitor's resolution. So what you can do is go to camera settings right here. And so again, view camera settings and set it to overscan. Right there. And that's going to show the whole thing regardless of your viewport size. Now I can properly frame this without any issues. So I'm going to bring this pretty close here. There we go. And I'll leave the grid on for now because when you're animating a bouncing ball, one of the most important things to make sure that you get is the starting height. Now, this is one of the things that I see students forget all the time. They will study their reference. It's always good to study reference. And then they will figure out the timing, all of that good stuff. Great, put it in there. And they will take the ball and then they're going to start it way up here and then hit the ground. But in their reference, they dropped it from maybe that high off of the ground. They hit the ground. That's a very different starting position. So when you're studying your reference, always pay attention to the starting height of the ball. Essentially just count how many ball heights are between the ball and the ground. You're going to have your starting point. So in this case, I'm going to start this. Let's see. I'm going to start this pretty short because I don't want this to be let's do 2.5 ball heights high. I don't want it to be a huge bouncing ball that lasts forever. Okay, cool. So we've got our ball here. Once I've got that height, I can just turn off my grid and I'm going to make sure I'm on frame 1, key my ball right there. Ta-da! Hey, we've got our first key. Now, I could animate this ball pose to pose. So like I was saying before, there are a lot of different workflows in animation and we can pick whatever ones we want. I could do this pose to pose, which means essentially I would take my ball here, then okay, next key, the ball goes forward there, touches the ground, goes forward, bounces up into the air, goes forward, touches back down on the ground, and I go on like that. The problem with that and would help if I was keying all the attributes and not just the translate Y. There we go. Now they're all keyed. Double check your channel box. That would help. So the problem with doing it this way is that it's unreliable in this case, because we're just going to have a lot of cleanup to do. You can see it's going up and down, up and down. The translations, if I wasn't being careful, could wiggle around and like speed up randomly. It's kind of a pain, at least to me. For an assignment like this, because it's essentially basic principles, it's a ball that is bouncing up and down and then moving forward and rolling to a stop. Two very important things, but that don't really have a relation to each other. The bounce isn't really going to be affected by how fast or slow the ball is moving. And how fast or slow the ball is moving isn't really important to the bounces. So I can do a layered approach to this. A layered approach essentially means I'm animating one thing at a time and then layering them together. So for example, for this, I'm going to just start with my translate Y. Now I actually do have some timing here from some planning I did way back when. So did I close it off? Dang it, I closed it off. I'd opened it because I wanted to show it. Let's see if I can quickly find it here. I took the timing here from the planning that I did of my first bouncing ball in Animation Mentor when I was in class 6 many years ago. So let me find it here once again. So this was my original planning way back when. And look, 2011, 12 years ago. Wow, it's a long time. So this was my planning. So I just took that and I took the timing of this. This way I'm not having to guess and estimate, just make things up. But the reason I wanted to do this, which for the next assignment, I'm not going to be taking any specific timing. The reason I want to do this here is to show you a method that you can use to work very quick and efficiently with a bouncing ball. So once you have all of your timing, you have your contacts and your peaks for all the jumps, what I can do here is I can take this ball and I'm just going to put in all my keys. So this ball is going to come in here and it's going to contact on frame 13. It's going to bounce frame 25, 35, 43, 51. Let's see, 63. And I missed one. 57. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to do this quick here, but then I'm going to explain the thought process through here of what we're looking at. So 73, that's what I'm looking for. 75, 77. There we go. So these are all of our contacts for the ball. So if I take these here and I'm just going to zero them out. There we go. Our ball comes down to the ground and not great, is it? Not really doing much. Well, that's because I'm missing the peaks. So if I go in here now and I just break down all of these in half, so put a key here in the middle, in the middle, in the middle, just like so. Nope, that's not the middle. There's the middle. Like so. So I just put in all of those keys. Now I can select them in the graph editor and move them up. There's our bounces right there. So I studied my reference. I got my timing from my reference. And now I've essentially got the core of my bounces in here very quickly. Does it look good? Let's see. No, it doesn't look good at all. It looks like garbage. So what do we need to do now? We just need to, again, think of the mechanics of this, and this is where studying your reference is very important. And we need to get those elements in there. So what am I missing right now? A lot. The first thing that we do have right now is the timing. Now the timing for a bouncing ball is very important because as a bouncing ball drops, usually what's going to happen, as long as there's no outside forces, is that the ball is going to have a very wide timing and then narrow, 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 narrow. So what I mean by this is if you think of this first jump here, we're only looking at the first half of the jump or bounce. So from frame 1 to frame 13, that's 12 frames. If we were to continue this backwards into the negative frames, that would mean that it would be 12 frames back the other way. So this first bounce here is 24 frames total if it was a full bounce. So 24 frames from contact to contact. Now this next bounce, 13 to 25, that's 12 frames. So we went from 24 frames to 12 frames. And let's see, I'm gonna write it down here just so we have it. So we had 24 and then we go 12. And now from this contact, 25 to 35, 10, 35 to 43, 8, 43 to 51. Wait. Okay, yeah. My math was wrong. I miscalculated something in my own head. So that's another 8 right there. And then 51 to 57, 6, 57 to 63, 4. So 6, 4. And already I'm noticing a mistake on my class 1 note. So this is where as you get more experience, it gets a little bit better. So 67, and then 67 to 71, 4, and then 2, 2, 2. So we get 4, 2, 2, 2. So what you notice here is that we get a big drop here at the beginning, and then it slows down. And here, this should actually be 6. So what we get is a big drop, slower, slower. And then here we don't lose speed for a little bit. And then we hold a little bit more and then hold even longer. So we go from losing a lot of time between each bounce to losing less and less and less. And honestly, I would tweak this now to probably have this be 14. So now we lose 10 frames, then 4 frames, then 2, and then 2 again. But now we hold here, hold here, hold there. So it creates a nice rhythm in the ball bounce that doesn't feel boring and mechanical or random. It's not like the first one lost. Let's say we went 24, 14, and then we went 12 and then 6, where this only lost 2 frames, but then it lost 6 frames there. That would be very strange. So we want to be careful of that and just be mindful of it. So what was it right here? That's better. Okay. And something I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get rid of all the keys on my other controls here. Don't need them right now. There we go. Nice and clean. Okay, cool. So we have that. So with that, we have our timing. From there, what we need is, I would put probably our degradation arc and our heights the first thing. So how much does the ball lose height from each bounce? This is very important because every type of ball will lose a different amount of height as it bounces. So for example, when a basketball drops, let's say this is a starting point, it hits the ground here, it will jump back to about 60% of its height. Now, this also depends on the ground. If it drops on carpet, it's going to be a lot less than it drops on cement. But on average, for most surfaces, it's about 60% right there. So somewhere around there. So you drop it, it bounces back up to about 60% of its height. It drops again, it's about 60% of its height. Again, 60%, 60%, 60%, like that. And as you do this, you'll notice that we get a curve that comes through. This is your degradation arc. as the object falls, there's this kind of consistent pattern to how much energy it's losing. It's not losing a lot of energy, then a little energy, then a lot of energy. Unless it's bouncing from carpet to cement to wood to grass, it should stay pretty consistent. Now, do we need to know the exact mathematical formulas? No, not at all. But you want to pay attention in your reference and kind of get an estimate approximately, especially if you're trying to animate a specific thing. So if you're animating a basketball or a football or a soccer ball or whatever it is, pay attention to that. It's going to make your animation feel much more realistic and not just random. So I want the degradation arc and I want the ball height. So how am I going to do this? Well, let's go with a basketball for this. So if it drops here, from there to here, I want this to be about 60% of that height. So maybe around there. It's a little bit higher than half. Actually, no. I feel like I'll go a little lower. So let's go like 40% right there. And then we'll adjust if we need to. Great. Now, do I have to do this for every single one? Ugh, that would be so boring doing this, going one at a time and hoping my arc works out. Not fun. I am a firm proponent in animating things efficiently and not having to fight things as you're animating. So in this case, what I can do is I'm just going to take one of my rotation curves. I'm going to set a key here. And let's just take that rotation curve and my translation curve. I translate Y. I'm going to take the first key of my rotation curve, match it up to the first key of my peak right there. So it's at the top there. And then the last key of my rotation curve, I'm going to set it to the height of the last bounce that I want. So I want that to be very low. Let's double check that. How low is this going to be? This is going to be a micro bounce. So this is going to be super, super low. And hey, thank you so much for the sub. Aw, thank you so much, Blaze. I really appreciate that. Thank you. That kind of shocked me. I was too concentrated on arcs. So we have this curve here that is one key at the start of the first peak, one key on the peak or at the top of the other peak, at the last peak. I can now just take this curve and just whoop, bring it down like so. And there's our degradation arc. Now, all I have to do is match all of my peaks to this curve right here. And we're going to have the overall bounces right there. Now, do I have to get it exact? No, not at all. It's just a guideline right there. So with that, I now have the heights. Let's see how this feels. Still kind of mushy, but the heights feel pretty good. So we're going to leave that for now. And now I need to actually get the bounces to hit. I need to actually get that nice hit right in there. Well, how do I do that? How do I get that nice sharp hit? Well, there's a few different ways. Let's actually just look at our translate Y for now. And this is, again, it comes down to workflows and just animating this in the way that makes most sense to you. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It is just what works best. So I could do this with keyframes. So I could set a key here on the frame before the contact, move this up, set a key here, move it the frame after the contact, move that up, and then I can set another key over here to round out this curve like that, to start shaping my keys. And if I was doing an acting shot, a lot of times I will break down things with keys because keys save your positions. If you have a bunch of keys here, let me redo this. So I have a bunch of keys here. If I accidentally select my curves and go step mode and then back to auto tangents, hey, my curve is still in place. If I shape my curve only with the tangents, so if I do something like this, and let's get rid of that key, and do something like that, and then accidentally go, oops, step mode, go back to auto tangents, I've lost everything. So keys are very nice. They save your animation. But in this case, having to set all of those keys is going to be super tedious, especially when we just want a nice clean curve. Okay, so we could use the tangents. Well, how do we do that? I could use the top tangent here, and then I take the bottom tangent. Now, I don't want to just move it like this because you'll see it affects both sides. So I would want to break the tangent here and then move this up and then move this up. But what this means now is that for every bounce, I have to affect 3 tangents. So I have one tangent over here, one tangent over here, and then this top one over right there. So 3 things just to get this arc to be round. This is a bouncing ball. There's no complexity to this. It goes up and it goes down. That's it. There's nothing really like alive about this. It's not going to have variation to it. It's mechanical. So I don't want to have more controls than I really need. So what I can do instead is I'm going to take all of my contact keys right here. Let's take those. Make sure I don't grab those top ones. There we go. I'm going to take all of those and then break their tangents. So now we control on one side of the tangent and then the other. But then instead of moving them up and down, I'm just going to hold down shift, middle mouse drag them right in to the key, like so. So let's do that here. Just bring them in, and you can see it's making that nice sharp V shape in there. There we go, and the last one. Technically, these last ones don't matter because it's one frame up, one frame down, but it's still nice to do. So I've done this. Hey, we've got this nice sharp V's. Now I just need to take this top tangent, hold down shift and middle mouse drag, and round out that arc. Right through here, right through there, going through, and I missed the tangent here. Dip, dip. Nice and round, nice and round, nice and round. Now again, these ones don't matter here because it's literally one frame up, one frame down, so you're not going to see any difference there. But there we go. Now I've done all of my peaks, and if I ever need to affect something or change something, I just need to take that one tangent and adjust it. There we go. So let's take a look at the ball now. Okay, now it's bouncing. That feels better. Yeah, so let's actually hide the curves here. There we go. Ignore the rotation. We're going to get rid of that in just a second. But yeah, that feels pretty good. So there we go. We've got all of our bounces done and in place. Cool. So that's our Translate Y. Complete. Done. And I know that it works. I know that it looks good. I'm not having to fight multiple things at once. Something that can be very frustrating is that if you're animating, let's say a bouncing ball, and you're dealing with the rotation and the translation and the Translate Y all at the same time, if one of them isn't working, it can make it really hard to focus on the one other thing that you're actually working on. So by doing this, by focusing on one thing at a time, in this case, the Translate Y, I can make sure that, hey, it looks good. It's done. Great. Let's move on. So I'm just going to get rid of my rotation here. Don't need it anymore. There we go. So now we just have our bounces. And let's go in and do our Translate Z. So this is going to be the side-to-side motion. And this is going to be pretty simple overall, because essentially I know where my ball starts over here in the top left corner. I want it to end over here. There we go. I want it to end on this specific position right there. And now we have our curve. And you'll notice that I have just a key at the beginning, a key at the end. Now, one thing I don't want here, in terms of timing, is for the last bounce of this ball to happen the moment that the ball stops moving. So I'm actually going to have that ball keep going here. The frame, let's go 97 since we've got all of this time here. Right there. So now that ball keeps going all the way through there. So it stops bouncing and then we'll get a little bit of a roll in there. Great. So let's watch this. Okay, cool. There's something wrong with this ball. And many of you can probably see it. It's starting slow and then speeding up mid-jump or mid-roll. How is it doing that? How is it gaining momentum in the middle of an action? You can't really do that. If you imagine someone's tossing this ball and it starts bouncing, the fastest movement is going to be at the start when the character tosses the ball. It's not going to speed up in the middle unless someone added a ton of spin to this ball. So this is where we go back to that first assignment. What do we want the curve to look like? What do we want to have happen? We want the ball to start fast and then slow down. Well, if we think back to what we want those curves to look like, that means we want something vertical, fast, that then flattens out, slows down. Translate curve here. I'm just going to do this. There we go. Fast, slow. If I want a little bit more control, it's nice to add an extra key in the middle. It just gives you a little bit more room to refine things right there. But now let's take a look at our ball right there. There we go. Translate Z is done. Goes forward. Very nice. But let's add a little extra. Let's have a little bit of a roll back in here. So it goes forward and just kind of eases back. So I'm going to go, let's say 93 here. I'm going to set a key. And I'm just going to bring this back up here. So again, thinking of our curves from last time, we have a change in direction. The curve was going down. Now it's going back up. That just tells us that the ball is now reversing direction. It was going screen right. Now it's going to go screen left ever so slightly. And I want it to feel it more than we see it. So like just the tiniest little bit there. And then let's make sure that we don't hold too much here. So what we don't want is this curve on this side to flatten out. So let me just exaggerate that. So how it's very flat here, that's going to make it weird that it then rotates backwards if it came to a stop for so long. So I want it to come to a nice ease right here, but not fully stop. So something like this. Let's see how this feels. Little bit of a hitch right there. So I'm going to go in here. Little bit smaller. Again, I want this. There we go. Just feel it more than we actually see it. So if we look at this here, full screen. If anyone didn't know this, you can hold down Control and hit spacebar to go full screen in Maya with your animation. It's very nice when you're just looking at your Play Blast. So we just get that tiny little, you feel it more than you see it ease at the end. I think we could maybe push it up a little bit, but for now it's fine. Okay, cool. So we've got that. There we go. So now we've got our forward translation. What's left? Now we just need the roll and we're good. Now, how do we get the roll in place? Well, we could just manually roll it and hope for the best. But again, that's a lot of tedious work and can be kind of a pain. If you think about it, the roll is tied into the translation. The faster it moves, the more it'll need to roll. The slower it moves, the less it'll need to roll. So we can just take our translation curve right here I'm going to copy it by going to edit, copy, go to my, on this rig here, it's the roll X attribute. So this is going to be my forward roll. And I'm just going to go to edit, paste, and there's our curve right there. And it's rolling. Now it's going the wrong way. We need to flip this curve. So the easiest way to flip this curve is to go to edit, scale, and set your, let me reset these settings here. Set your scale value, or value scale, to -1. Right there. What that'll do is it'll flip your whole curve for you. So now our ball is rolling the right way, but it's sliding a little bit right here at the end. And if I zoom in right here, and then I'll turn on wireframe on shaded by hitting Alt 5, or you can go to shading, wireframe on shaded right there. This shows us the edges on the object. And what I can do now is just scrub through, and you can see how it looks like it's just slipping along. I want this to roll. So I'll just take my roll curve here and scale it up. Right through there. And then I'll just scrub through. And actually, that is pretty good overall. I think maybe a little too high. So if it feels like it's sliding across, scale it up more. If it feels like it's spinning in place, scale it down. So right there. And we get that nice roll to a stop right there. So let's go back to our shot here and just watch this. There we go. The roll is complete. Done. So there's our bouncing ball. Now, if I want this to be a little bit fancier, I can do a couple of things. One is I want to make sure that the line of the ball is not perfectly flat or vertical at the start or end. So for example, if the line was like this or like this at the start or end, that's going to feel a little bit boring. As long as it's a little bit different, that's all I really need. Okay. We've got that. Comes through. There we go. Okay, now what I can do is make this look a little bit more interesting by taking my roll Z attribute, and I'm just going to bring this up a little bit. And you'll notice that it gives this nice twist to the ball so that the stripe isn't just perfectly straight, but has that nice three-dimensionality to it. And as it spins, it just looks cooler. And then on top of that, I could just add in a little bit of extra rotation in here. Just a little. Something like that. So that as it comes to a stop, it also has like a little bit of spin in there. It's not going to be much, but what we're going to do is we're going to feel that. So if we look at this now, there's our ball animation. Done. There we go. Second week of assignments complete. So, just trying to think here if there's anything I'm missing. I think that's pretty much it. So that's a bouncing ball. So let me, I'm being very nitpicky here. I felt like there was a little bit of a hitch in the translation and rotation. I'm just going to come in here. Yeah, there it is. So I could feel that hitch where it just kind of locked off. I need to ease this a little bit more right there. And again, that's just knowing what your curves are doing. It was going very fast and very slow too quickly, one next to the other. So by taking this, so you can see it's going slow, fast, slow. By shrinking this here, I'm just tapering this and making it a smoother transition right there. There we go. So let's save this. Assignment 2. Complete. There we go. when a ball bounces, something of a good polish note to look for in your shot is when a ball hits the ground, you're going to have a transfer of energy and momentum. And you can see it, I'm kind of missing it right here, where the frame before the contact should typically be a little bit higher than the frame after. So if we look at the height here, and then the height there, it's ever so slightly higher. So whew, I got it right. Ideally, I would want to push that a little bit more. But exaggerate that right there. There we go. So higher and then lower. So the ball is higher, contacts, bounces up, it's a little lower. The reason for this physically is because as the ball falls, it gains momentum. As it hits the ground, some of that energy is dissipated into the ground, and whatever is left causes the ball to bounce, and then it goes a little bit lower than it came in because it has less energy. So this is something that you want to double check on all of your bounces right here. So right through there is good. Right through there is good. So there we go. So that's a good thing to check. But to answer your question, in the Anime Survival Guide, they have it in the reverse, where it's lower on the way in and then higher on the way out. That is simply stylistic choice. So what I'm animating here is physical correctness, because I want to show that I understand how things move in real life. But it doesn't mean we can't break that consciously and with thought behind it. And we're going to see that happen when we go into one of the later assignments here. So by reversing it, what it does is it gives more energy as it pops out. It gives more of a snap and makes the animation just feel a little bit more energetic, versus when it loses energy at each time, it just gets more tired and tired and tired. It's like less and less and less, versus hitting and boom, hitting boom, and you get a nice bounce in there. So is it incorrect? No. But if you're just doing it randomly without realizing why you're doing it, then it can be just, how to put it, you're just letting Maya take control of your animation and letting things happen at the whims of the animation gods. And a lot of times that can sometimes work out. More often than not, it's going to create something that doesn't feel quite right, especially if it switches halfway through the animation. So the other part of it is that, especially in 2D, you're oftentimes animating on twos. And when you're animating on twos, that contact feels better the other way around because you're missing frames around and it just feels more energetic that way. So yeah, is it wrong? No, but we want to be, again, conscious of the rule before we break the rule. Now, do you ever consider physics when thinking how many frames on each bounce, or is it necessary? I consider the physics in the sense of what I saw in my reference and what I'm going towards. So for example, the degradation height for a basketball, like that's 60%-ish. I'm going to go around there. But then as you saw, I then change it to what feels right. I don't follow physics. I don't care what the physics should be in real life. Same thing like the last question. We know what our physics should be, but then we're making a conscious choice of what we want. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to know every mathematical physics element of the shot. But as long as you study your reference, that's the important thing, is studying your reference. So short answer, no, don't worry about the physics of it. That's not really the most important thing. It's what looks good. Let's see. Okay, so when you animate and you think in the speed of the movement, you think in terms of time or in terms of space? A little bit of both, because timing and spacing go hand in hand. Timing is the beats of the shot. For example, if I'm over here and it takes me 10 frames to get over here, well, that's the overall timing. Great. But the spacing can affect that speed. So, or affect the perception of the speed. So for example, if I start slow and then fast and then slow, that's going to feel a lot faster than if I do that same movement in a linear movement right there. The timing is still the same, but the spacing has affected our perception of how fast it moved between those 2 points. So they go hand in hand. When you're talking about timing and spacing, it's not two separate things. It's like two things that are twisted together and one affects the other. So I always try to think of them together as a whole, if that makes sense.